In this video, I'm going to show you how to create, set up and adjust the overall report. After having finished all of the design tasks and set up all the necessary interactive lists and graphics, we can finally create our overall report. First, I suggest you reviewing the SSD task tree and get rid of the unnecessary interactive lists and graphics. For example, we have created these two interactive result viewer files, and if we open the first one, we will find the number of the PLB data, which is the 053. So I will close back this one and I will go to the project folder, search for this PLB data, PLB file, which can be found here, and I will simply delete it. Then going back to SSD, I'm also going to delete the task from SSD as well. The similar workflow I'm going to undertake on the internal forces along the axis exercise file. I will open it with the report browser, check its number. It is the 054, so I will delete this one from the project folder. Closing back the report browser, opening the project folder and delete the corresponding PLB file. Then going back to SSD, I'm also going to delete the task itself. Finally, we also created a WinGraph file, an interactive WinGraph file. I will also delete this task by right-click on it and choose the delete option. Now I believe that only the tasks that are really necessary being presented or being available in the SSD task tree. So I will choose the report by clicking on the report icon and click on the All Reports. As I mentioned previously, in this drop-down list you can see all the tasks that produced a PLB file, a report browser file, but now we are going to create and adjust the overall report. So I need to click on this All Reports button. The report browser will be open and we can review the available SSD task reports in this overall report. Please notice that the very first task or the very first module in this task tree is the SOFiMesh-C module, which is the mesh generation or the model geometry and mesh generation module. So the definition of the materials and cross sections are missing. This is because when we exported the model, I always clicked on the SOFI Plus and have chosen the calculate from options. So the tasks above the SOFI Plus task didn't create any report browser file. Hence, the best would be to re-export the model and start the analysis once more from the very beginning, from the materials, and go through all of the tasks once more. So I'm going to open the SOFI Plus by double-clicking on the SOFI Plus task. I had to wait some seconds, but finally SOFI Plus has opened. Now we can simply close back the SOFI Plus and go back to SSD. So I will close by saving it and go back to SSD. Going back to SSD, you can see that the calculation window is open in my SSD, so I will close it back. And I will simply click on the Home ribbon bar and choose the Calculate All options from there. If you click on it, you can see that now the analysis really starts at the beginning with the material definition and the cross sections, and all the tasks will be run through once more. After 136 seconds, all the tasks were run through, and now we can open up the overall report, and hopefully now the overall report will present or will show the output of all of the tasks, and we can already see here that this is the case, I'm going to have an output of the materials, the cross sections, the pre-stressing system, then the system itself from SOFiPlus, and so on and so forth. So let's open the overall report by clicking on the All Reports button. And the report browser opened automatically, and really now it is starting with the first task with the representation or with the output of the materials. Now I would like to talk a little bit about the structure of the report browser. Basically, first we can read the name of the chapters, such as materials, and below we can also see that some of the chapters are open, represented by an open book. However, some of them are closed, represented by a closed book. One can open or close any of these chapters, and as I'm doing it, as you can see, for example, the input of the materials has been opened. By default, all the input data for every task is closed. When our goal is to create an overall report which is easy to review for the checker engineer, for example, I'm suggesting you to have a look at the overall pages of the report. This case, for example, you can see that we have altogether 819 pages. I found it too much, and I don't think any of the checker engineers will review this kind of report. So therefore, my normal workflow or procedure is to go through the chapters and double check if a chapter is really necessary for representation. Let me show you an example. For example, if I'm looking at material 2, which is the reinforcing steel material in our example file, I can see that there is a chapter which shows the thermal material constant of this reinforcing steel. However, we are not performing a type of analysis when we need these thermal material constants. Therefore, the first thing it would be to close these chapters everywhere. We do not need this type of properties of the materials. I have closed now all of these sections, and as you can see, only by this action already saved 2 pages from the overall report. So my suggestion is to go through all of the tasks first, review the chapters, and really turn on or off the sub-chapters that really necessary for review. If you finished with closing back all the unnecessary chapters, the next thing I would do is to go through the overall report and search for the warnings, errors, and the critical values in it. The way how you can do that is the following. First, I will open up all of the inputs. As you can see now, all of the inputs has opened. And among the top icons, I would click on the Find Warnings icon. And in this way, Report Browser will automatically jump to the very first warning. One needs to decide whether or not a warning is important or simply can be ignored. This time this warning could be ignored, so I will simply click and find the next warning, which is, as you may remember, was about the superpositioning results when the system tried to generate the maximum support force in the global X, Y, and Z direction. However, they were not available. These warning messages can be also ignored. And then we reach the status where we undertook the design of the elements in a system. And here we also received some warning message about exceeding the capacity of the section. As I mentioned, in general, you need to do something with these kind of warnings and going back and revise your model in SOFiPlus, for example, introducing even more pre-stressing and so on and so forth. Now in the training, I'm not going to do that, but in a real design situation, of course, you cannot ignore these type of warnings and you need to do some amendments or some revision of your structure. Okay, if you finished reviewing your warnings, then again I would like you to simply click on the materials at the very beginning of the report and now search for the errors. You need to again click on the Find Errors icon among the top icons, and the software will show to you if there is any error in your report browser or basically in your model. Luckily we do not have any, so I will simply click on the OK button. In the similar fashion, you can search for the critical value or the critical limits by clicking on this icon, and the report browser will automatically jump to the location where the first limit value is exceeded. Then if you keep clicking on this button, you will find all of the exceedance in your design procedure. And of course, as I mentioned, the solution would be to revise the model to get rid of these critical limits. If you finished with the revision of the model and you are not going to get any warnings and errors and critical limits mark in the report, then you can simply uncheck the errors, warnings, and the control of input. In this way, the errors, the warnings, will not be printed in the overall report, and also all of the input data will be closed back. If you want, you can also hide the legend of the tables. With this action, you can also save some pages in the report. Let's see, for example, now we have 812 pages. If I uncheck the presentation of the legends, the overall pages in the report will be reduced to 799. However, I believe the legend is very important for the reviewer or for the checker engineer for better understanding. So I will keep it marked. Now I would like to give a further explanation on the behavior of the chapters. Let's suppose that I would like to deselect the material 2 for representation, so I simply close the chapter that shows material 2. If I now closed back the report browser and then reopen it, the setting of the closed book will be remembered, and by reopening, the chapter will be also closed. However, if you go back to the model file, let's say you change the properties of material 2, re-export the model and rerun the analysis, then reopen the report browser, you might find that this chapter is reopened again, but I think this is reasonable since you have made some changes on material 2. So I would like to emphasize, before the final printing of the overall report, you need to double check if the unwanted chapters really closed back. Before you print the overall report, one thing you need to be also adjust is the frame type that you are applying to the pages. Because you have some possibilities to change this layout, I mean the framing layout. If we go to the File menu and go to the Project options, at the page frame, we are going to have some predefined page frames. At the moment, we are looking at the standard one, but it's also a possibility to use no frame at all. Then we can choose the width frame or the so-called ZTVK frame. This is a German one. So as you can see, you have some possibilities. However, it's very important to emphasize that if you make any changes here, you need to recalculate the tasks and then the settings of the frames will be taken over. Now I do not want to change the standard frame, so I'm simply going to click on the Cancel button. When everything reached the final status and ready for the final printout, then one can simply insert the table of content by checking in this checkbox, Table of Contents. And then at the beginning, as you can see, before the materials, the table of contents will be inserted. It is important to emphasize that the table of contents will not be automatically updated. This means when you rerun your model, the best practice is to simply uncheck and then recheck the table of contents button. When the final table of contents has been inserted, we can print out the report. You can either send the document to a printer, or there is an inbuilt export to PDF printer. However, it doesn't have a so extensive property set, so maybe the best way is if you install a PDF printer on your computer and go to the File menu and there choose the printing option. If you choose the print, you will find yourself in the print dialog box where you can select your printer, for example Microsoft Print to PDF. And like in any other print dialog box in Windows, you can set the range of the printout. Also, you can select the number of copies, set how many pages you would like to print on one page, choose whether or not you would like to get the printout in black and white or in color. What is more interesting is the page numbering, because you can set what the first page number should be, and also you can add a prefix to this numbering. So for example, if you want to number according to chapters, it is also possible that instead of the page, here you type in 1 point, for example, and then the hash mark. And as a result, the page numbering will be like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and so on. But you can also add instead of the page the title of the chapter. Finally, you can add also date notifications. Other printing properties can be set on the Properties button, but I'm not going into details since it is the very same like in any other Windows application. With this information, we can conclude this video, and I'm going to continue with the explanation of the report browser in the next video. In this video, I would like to show you an alternative way to print out or to present your report, the overall report, namely to use another type of format, the Microsoft Word docx format. If we open up the File menu and go to the Project options, in this dialog I already showed to you how to set the frame of the A4 pages. However, as you can see, there is also an export to docx option in this dialog box. If you want to receive a report of the task in docx format too, then all you need to do is check this Enable button, and as it is stated, export a docx file each time a PLB file is generated. Since a PLB file is generated after the run of every task, therefore every task is going to generate a docx file in the project folder. To control how this docx file should look like, you can use docx templates. If I make this dialog box a little bit bigger, you can see that SOFiSTiK is already using a built-in default docx template, which is called actually from the installation folder of SOFiSTiK 2020, and the name of it is basic.docx. However, if you do not like this template, of course, by clicking on this icon, you can search for your own docx and use it as a template. For now, for representation purposes, just use the basic docx template from SOFiSTiK and see how it looks like. So now I have enabled the docx export, and I will click on the OK button. Of course, to generate such a docx file, I need to go back to SSD and then at least calculate one task. Let's suppose I'm going to calculate the very first material task. I will choose from the drop-down list the Calculate Materials option, and then with another right mouse button, I will open up the report. As you can see, the report of the materials is being generated. But let's see the project folder whether or not the docx file also created. And yes, we can see here that a docx file has been created in the project folder with the exact same file name as the PLB file. If I double click on this docx file, Windows Word will be opened. And now you can see how the basic SOFiSTiK template, Word template or docx template look like. But as I said, you can use your own template and the output of the tasks will be exported in this docx template. I would like to also add that this export to docx feature has been developed not so long ago, and still it is in the experimental status. So I just want to underline that it might not have so many features as you expected. Now let's close back the Word and go back to SSD. In order to have the overall report also in the docx format, we need to rerun all of the tasks. So I will simply choose this calculation once more and go back to the Home ribbon and choose the Calculate All option and click on it. After having recalculated the whole project, I will click on the Explorer icon here and go to the project folder, and now we can really see that the corresponding doc files has been generated for every task in the SSD task tree. If the individual docx files are available, then you have the possibility to edit them together in one whole docx file. Or if you go back to the overall report, on the file menu or below the file menu, you also have the possibility to export the overall report to a docx file. Alright, so this is all I wanted to explain about how to export to docx and also how to handle the report browser.